Hey, well, welcome to the Dream Labs, the Dr. Contrast Live here today. I just really am grateful for the chance to be back on stream again, and really apologize for yesterday's miscue. I missed the session yesterday because I had a little gathering to attend to, and maybe sometime this week or early part of next week I'll bring up to speed on what that was. And that was really an interesting session, and out of it came some very interesting things about just basic fundamental perspective. And I just thought, well, maybe today we'll go back and do some a little retrenching here and rediscover some of the magic of perspective. And I entitled this one just Architectural Interior Sketches, the Process. And I think it's really important to go back in and look at some very basic things here from the point of view of how to set things up. I mean, this is one of the most, and from my perspective, no question, interior space design is one of the most complicated processes you'll ever move into, because there's so many moving parts. It's so magical in terms of north and south, east and west, inside the picture plane, coming out of the picture plane, changing texture, scale, color. All these things begin to take effect, and it's a very demanding set of circumstances. So all that to say that I'm going to go through some very quick, very fundamental thinking processes here today, just on basic setups, how to begin to put things together using some very critical elements that we sometimes, often, really do not pay attention to, and then we ignore it, and all of a sudden we get into trouble because things begin to go askew, and it just doesn't seem to function well. So let's bring it right back down to a rock solid base here, begin to work on some things that I think will really help us to go through the process. I know they helped me to go through the certain process we're going to go through this afternoon. And really, from my point of view, every time I work with a client in interior space, you will see today the kind of sketches I start with, just to kind of go through the process, maybe a phase one series of, is this the right perspective? Is this the right scale? Is this the right concept you're after? And very often, for what it's worth, I won't repeat this again throughout the course of the presentation today, but one of the things I really enjoy doing is when I go into a certain client meeting, I take a pad of paper along with me, and as they start talking about what the space looks like and bring out the prints or the scale drawings that they're dealing with, they'll start talking about what they're after, and I'll just start doing little sketches that you're going to see here in a moment, and begin to put them in front of them and say, is this what you're after? And it's really magical to see what kind of response you get, because it just, two things it does. Number one, it really improves your credibility with the fact that your client has chosen you to work with them to develop the process. Number two, there's no mystery in terms of what you're developing. They see right in front, oh, can you adjust this? And you work back and forth with it, so it becomes a conversational, creative process, which I think is really, really critical, especially in this marketplace where there's so many things going on in terms of people not following through. They say they will, then they won't. So it's a very difficult set of circumstances to deal with. So let's just kind of, without any further delay here, let's go back and look at some just basic, simple process things that we're going to deal with here. And I'm going to take my time to go through a series of little thumbnail sketches, little pictorials, and then begin to put it all together. And at the end of the stream here, I'll show you some examples, a very limited amount of examples I've dealt with over the last few years in terms of working with a lot of clients in interior space, from large office to small office to you name it, commercial, non-commercial, just a lot of stuff. So let's go back here. First thing we want to develop here, let's get that horizon line down. Let's just lay down a line, and I'm going to work with red. That's going to give me a reference line. That's my horizon line. That's where I'm going to start looking. That's where my eyes are going to be, right there. That's where it's at. I'm going to pick a spot of reference here, just a little dot there. It tells me where my vanishing point is. That's where my central vanishing point is. Now I'm going to come back and begin to develop a form here. I'm going to come back in and just start to look at developing the shape here. Let's just kind of come back and drive those lines out of there. Pardon me as I rotate the pad a little bit here to work with. Just fly through this in. These are real rapid little concept sketches. Now I'm going to pick a height. So come back up, maybe a terminator right there. Now let's drive that across in the picture plane. Let's kind of get twisting it up just a bit. Let's drive that across in the picture plane. Let's kind of get this now. Let's drive this line. I want to open that wall up. And then I'll talk about this in a moment here. I'm going to open that wall up, and then one of the things I enjoy doing in working with interior space such as this is being very selective and, again, listening to the client talking about what they're after. Oftentimes they'll have a very magical or a very intriguing wall with a lot of change of pace or a lot of color change or texture change. That's an interest to me. So I open that wall up so I see more of it. And then the ones of not interest, that maybe it's just all paneling or all paint or whatever it might be, and it close that down. So what you're seeing here is the idea of opening up this wall. Let's just do this. Let's get the back wall in place here. Perspective. Turn that through. And again, just connect the dots. There's my back wall right there. Now I'm out of that. I'll come back to that vanishing point, open that up, and I begin to open this wall up, but there might be a lot of interest in the area that I'm dealing with. So let's kind of terminate that. Let's bring this across, and let's just bring that across. And notice there's an awful lot of collapse in this perspective. You notice that? It's not a typical one-point perspective where everything remains very static in terms of being very parallel one another. A good friend of mine, a tremendous mentor years ago, taught us a little lesson on how to develop an altered 1-2 perspective, one 2-point perspective, where you start with a 1 point and then you open up it into a 2-point perspective, and it just changes the drama of the entire space. Now, it doesn't get too twisted, it doesn't get too distorted, but it begins to open up the idea and puts a little more excitement into a 1-point side, which it can be very drab in a very instant hurry here. So let's go back in again. Let's find where the perspective center of this guy is, the back wall. Let's just drive that through, give it a reference point. Now from that CVP, let's drive a line through there. There's my center point right there on the ceiling. And then coming right back in again. Down, let's drop that line down just a bit and draw that right through. And there's my vanishing point. There's my center on the floor right there. I'm just, a lot of construction. Notice again, we really highlighted this particular sketch session or this stream talking about process. Not final stuff, but just how to develop a thought process and putting it all together. Pardon me as I reach across here and get that all set up. So now let's go back in and say, let's go back and find the perspective center of the floor. Let's open that up, drive that through. Let's take that into let's get a quadrant here. Now let's put a little circle place in here. Let's radius that off. Get that in place, take that on through, then come back in through here and just develop this. Changing the format just a bit, then driving that back in perspective. Again, back to the back wall. Now let's move this up into the center of the ceiling here. It's got a light fixture. This and this. Let's open that up to BP. Back to BP. Again, back to horizon, or the 2-point line of the 1-2. Then a little bit of depth in this thing. Back to BP again. Negative, a little negative space in the ceiling. Now if I want to split that up again and open that up with a diagonal, there it is there. Cross-reference. Again, behind it, into that form, into that. Let's say I want to go in here and put a little more detail in the end cap here. Now I can start just using this as a freewheeler to come back and change a little bit of the character of what the shape is starting to look like here. Notice how it all of a sudden is starting to develop a little bit of drama in the form itself. And I think that's the fun part about putting this whole process together. So let's take this a little further. Open that up. Open that up, get this forward wall in place, open that up just a bit, take that line through, and let's add a little bit of human scale. Just real quick process sketches to give us some idea of what these forms are going to look like. So there's a start, for example, of a process, how to set up the horizon line first, and then go back to picking a point of reference, which is on my central vanishing point, which is right in through here, and coming right back in and going right through the line here and developing the shape or the space as we go through it. So there's one step at it right there. I mean, let me top out for a moment and go back and review. This is called an altered 1-2 point, where I'm not really dealing with a pure 1 point where everything remains parallel. I'm just kind of twisting the shape a little bit to make it more romantic or a little more intriguing, so we can kind of develop a little more intrigue or excitement in the space itself. So let's go back to another little study here. Let's go back to horizon line. Let's get this guy in place. Let's get that horizon line down. Draw through it. That's my point of reference. Let's pick a spot here and call that central vanishing point. Let's indicate that's it. That's where I'm going to be standing. That's where my eyes are. Let's go back in and let's open this up now. Sketch out of it. Sketch out of it. Pick a spot here. Bring that into play. Let's bring this back wall into play here. Open that up just a bit. Let's bring this down. Set up the whole backlight area here in the ceiling. And notice, once again, let's find the perspective center of that back wall. There it is. Drop it down. Bring that right through. And there I am. And let's connect the dots here. This comes forward. That comes out. Back into floor. Back to wall. Now, let's open this up. Let's say I want to come back and step this surface back here just a bit. So let's step this back. Let's go to here. And let's kind of step that back to there. Back to there. Open that up again. Draw right through it. Let's go ahead and just let's go back and divide this up just a bit. Let's put a little bit of opening in through here. Let's drive that line through the ceiling and then from the floor. There's another little architectural concept sketch there to open that up using the BP systems and the horizon line to develop the shapes and surfaces without not a lot of fuss. So let's go back in through here and let's find this perspective center. Let's go back to the ceiling here. Let's get these guys in place. Let's pick a point of reference, put some lighting up on top of this thing. BP. Now let's pick this up. There's one. There's two. Let's get a little bit of depth in this guy. That to that. And again, the vertical. Little recesses in the ceiling. And there I am. I come out of this one with the whole series again. And there's some lighting. Pull this over to the center. And again, maybe it's just some very simple post lighting here by doing the following. 1, 2, and then a little bit further river. And I'm just following those same drive lines right back into that shape itself. And look how simple that is in terms of working with the horizon line and getting these small ballpoint sketches to kind of really flare for us here and open the avenue of thought in terms of developing the shape. So if I'm going to come back in through here and just kind of tighten down a little bit more, just to get these forms to read. There I am. I can take this quadrant and split this open just a bit, run it across, then run it back to VP, and break it down again. Maybe this has a bit of a tile texture to it, so it's maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and just count it through. Then again, 1, look how that opened right up. And again, adding human scale to it. Back in space, just a little bit more. And then right away, you've got a sense of depth, a sense of perspective, and again, using the building blocks of the process to create the shape, which takes the mystery out of trying to guess at it. You know where you're going to be following all the time. All these things come back and land back into that area known as horizon line and where your vanishing points are. So let's kind of draw through that a bit. There you go. So there's a little bit simplified, a little bit more complicated. When you start to move, notice as we said in the very beginning of the program, how this thing begins to move back and forth. It's extremely, what I refer to as like visual gymnastics. So you're all over the map in terms of coming out, going back in, going north and south, and then creating texture and changes, patterns and so forth that begin to really develop the forms we're dealing with here. So that's that guy. So let's kind of tighten down just a bit more. There's a lighting up on top there, and it's part of the ceiling here. Again, change of pace, back out again. And there it is, just a very simple little thumbnail study here, letting the process do the work for us here. Let's start another one here. There's a horizon line. Let's draw this through. There's my reference line. There's my central vanishing point. Now this time let's kind of come out of this thing with a nice little flare. There it is. And again, there it is. Let's open this up. Let's kind of pick a point right here. Now let's put a radius in this thing, almost a curvilinear wall. Going to come out of here with that, just to kind of indicate it here. Now let's come back in, pick up a slot here, create the back wall, build that in place. Now let's take that through. Notice how all of a sudden, the beauty of this whole process is that it all comes together when you begin to honor the fact that all these so-called cardinal areas of reference have to be respected, and that is horizon line, vanishing point, scale, texture, patterning right and left, and then getting into radii, and so how that begins to fall into place within the perspective structure itself. So let's go a little further with this guy now. Let's go back and pick this up, a vertical here. Let's kind of break it there. Let's take this thing back in space. Take it back to ceiling, back in space. Put a little bit of tone in this thing now to kind of give us a little bit of an indication of what's shaking. It is kind of going through. That's in. Let's drop that through. Let's take this guy and create a wall here. Let's get this back in space here. There we are. Let's get that guy to run. And just take it back in perspective again, just changing the pace. Let's put a little bit of a detail here. Let's run that through, right back. little bit of a division. And again, take that through the hallway. And right back down the floor surface again. Let's take this wall, divide it up just a bit. Let's take this whole process, find the center of that back wall, find it, put the center here, and then drive it right back up into here. And in this case, let's kind of pick up that, and we'll just go through the lines here. It's that, and it's open up like a big vaulted area in the ceiling itself. So this whole ceiling begins to open up. Notice there's my drive line here. I'm going to follow that through with that. I'm going to follow it through with that. Bring that into play. And again, pick up a little bit of a recess, a little offset there, and then right through here. And let's find the perspective center, there and there. It starts this, into this. Now I just kind of split it up again. Back to horizon, the vanishing point, back to vanishing point. And I'm going to create a little bit of an offset in here. Look, I've got a grid pattern up in the ceiling now where the lighting box might be. And again, setting up a little bit of scale. And through here, and through here, and bring up another point of reference here. Let's kind of take this offset, run that through. Then I get a hallway here. How's that? And put a bit of fillet on it, a little radius. And there it is right there. And look how quickly that came together. Oh, pardon me as I lost my pad reference here. Let's take a moment, just kind of review where we are here. Notice once again, I'm really going to make a big deal out of this whole little thumbnail series. Hey, how you doing there? Pixel 8, subscribe to Tier 1, episode 03. Jeez. Hey, Doc, good to see the architecture lessons. Very cool. Hey, thanks, Pixel. Good to have you on board here. Just a very simple little process pieces. Nothing really fancy yet. I think I just go through some of the areas of how to develop these shapes and what to deal with in terms of horizon lines. And again, with the actual point of reference, the central vanishing point being very critical. And using that whole gymnastics to kind of put all the pieces together to really create what I refer to as some architectural, and I've said at the very beginning of the stream, extremely demanding discipline as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's nothing more foreboding, for example, to start a space study. And if you're in there guessing at it all the time, it's extremely difficult to do. So I just thought it would be interesting to kind of pull back today and begin to look at just some basic fundamental architecture on how to become successful in taking a very complicated series of interior space processes and design systems and bringing it into a nice simple format of keeping it very honest, direct. But the big thing I want to really stress here, and as I go through these exercises today especially, is the idea or the drama involved in getting into an altered 1-2 point perspective. In other words, I hate to be redundant here, but I think it's really worthwhile really stressing the fact that you can do a 1-point sketch, but everything remains pretty well parallel. And it gets a little bit boring after a while because it just the rhythm changes. All the horizontals remain parallel, all the verticals remain parallel. And in a case like this, I think it was one of Sid Mead's pet tricks about taking a system like a 1-point and then twisting it into a 2-point series by adding an element of 2 points. So you started out, for example, with a 1-point essence here with that central vanishing point, then took that far side wall or the actual perimeter way out from perspective to the right or to the left, and created a 2-point system within a 1-point area. And boy, it's amazing, for example, how much it really changes the personality of a sketch. And I think that's one of the things I really wanted to utilize today in getting this lesson plan or this stream put together here. Not so much a lesson plan, but just a drawing process of getting that really instilled, because it's so unique. And I've used it over the years for interior space with clients, and they just love it because it takes it away from just being the same old crisp, as I said, horizontals and verticals. Very unique set of circumstances. So once again, really very, very vital in terms of getting the process down. And I think a lot of this conversation today was a result of a conversation I had yesterday with a group of young people on just basic perspective. A lot of questions about how do you set it up? What do you start with? Do you use a ballpoint pen? And can you cheat the perspective? Can you? And my answer in every case was yes, you can. It's a matter of learning how to, once you get the system down, understand the principles and the rules that are involved, now you can alter that and not so much cheat it, but flatter it. There's a big difference between cheating and flattering. I know a lot of people who like to cheat and it looks terrible, self-included. But there are other individuals who learn how to flatter a shape and make it more dynamic than it has to be. And I think that's a great thing about, architecture, and especially architectural interior space. Now, without any hesitation, I will also admit this, that the whole idea of flattery in interior space comes from a whole modular transportation design. As a transportation designer, I've been taught to cheat the circumstances. I mean, overly flatter the forms, make it lower, make it wider, make it more romantic, more voluptuous, more sheer, taking advantage of those circumstances of flattering a form. So you bring that whole theory or that whole process into interior space and architecture, and it just changes the whole tempo. Fun stuff. So there we are. Stuart, 13 longer. Hey, the ladies love it when you flatter. Yes, they do, Stuart. Hey, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us here. Again, very simple little thumbnail sketches here in a very demanding, I think, discipline, and that is architectural interior space. And again, Stuart, just working with the process here today, and not getting into anything in terms of formal rendering. I'll show you some things later on in the stream here about where we ended up with some of this fundamental thinking process. But let's go back through it again and create another little study here. Let's go back to horizon line. If you have any questions of Stuart or Pixel, any questions along the way, please feel free to just chime in here. Again, red line, horizon line. That comes. Now I'm going to pick my point of reference. It's going to be right there. That's where I'm going to be standing right there. Now I'm going to start building the shape. And hopefully, there it is. Pardon me, I just lost my pen. There we go. Got it. Okay. Let's go back in here. First of all, let's get this form down here. Let's go back in and say, from there, I'm going to branch out and create those walls. Just open it up. And again, out here, open it up. Just create a spray or two triangles, two wedges, two lead-ins, for example, to create the form itself. Now I'm going to come back in. Understood. Good stuff. Thanks, Stuart. So let's go back in here. Let's pick a little point of reference. Let's say I'm going to come back in here, and I'm just going to come in and just drop this down just a touch. Let's go ahead. I want to put a little bit of a bevel, a shape in this thing. Let's do this. Let's open this up. This is cool. Come back into this, to this, to that, and that. Now it's a chamfered series or a chamfered upper. Now I'm going to drive that back in perspective. It's a little bit of a change of pace right there. It told me an awful lot about what that ceiling is doing. So it's now flat to bevel, flat to bevel, and vertical. Let's go back in here and just pick up that same theme. Break that down just a bit. There I am. Run that through. Run that through. Now let's go back and cheat that guy just a bit. Go back in here. Let's find the perspective center of this wall. Let's go back into here, there, to there, down to this. From CVP, right straight through again. Now let's pick this up into a radius right here. Take that back. And notice. Let's take that first bevel right there and open this up. Let's go back in again and draw this through. Let's take a little bit of a minimal there, open that up, draw that through, draw that through. And again, opening. A little bit of rendering there, just a touch to tell me where I'm going. Back in space just a bit. There it is there. Let's come back and pick up another hallway down here. Let's pick up the same reference and move it over about half the distance. Let's drive that through. And let's just say this. It's going to open this up. Now let's take this end cap and just begin to blunt it off and create a little bit of glass dynamic in through here. So we're going to do this, this, and let that go to transparency. I mean, look how that architecture helped me build that shape in terms of putting it all together. Now let's drop this in, and let's drop this in. And we just change the entire character of that back wall. Again, getting that all put together. Very simple process here. Put it all together. 07 Pixel 8. Salute. Hey, how you doing, guys? Thanks for, yeah, I really do. Thanks for joining us, Stuart. It's good to have you on board here, man. Well, let's go back and pick up that same centerline theme again and go right back to central vanishing point. Drive that through. Let's pick up an area here that does this and an area that does this. I'm going to pick up a reference square there, square in perspective there, and a square in perspective there. I'm going to use those three squares to develop the lighting system by doing the following. Circle, 1, 2, 3. Again, a little bit of texture change. A little softness in this thing, kind of break up some of the harshness of all the edges. Let's work through it. Really squiggly, kind of soften out the shapes here just a bit. Just going to give a little bit of foundation to it and then plant it. And again, come back in with some human scale. I mean, look how quickly that comes together in terms of letting the system work for you. And I think that's the key thing about today's stream, letting the stuff work for you rather than us work at it. I mean, it's just automatic. Once that begins to take place, it's all extremely, it takes all the pressure off of your shoulders because you know now how to build these things. And I think that's another important thing about today's stream as far as concept goes, is that I'm a firm believer in building and drawing. You don't just guess at it, you build it and you put it all together based on known, fundamental, truthful principles. And again, as we said earlier, if you get those principles down and you understand how the whole process begins to function, then it's absolutely no difficulty whatsoever to come back in and really begin to understand how to flatter the shape, how to change the character of it, and how to alter certain things. So there's phase one here. Let's kind of put this together. So that's that guy. So let's go a little further here. Let's magnify him up a little bit. There's a first series of little process sketches. I'll come back to those in a few moments here. Let's get those guys down. Let's go back into the same process. Let's get this thing through here, and let's get the horizon line down. Let's drive that right in. There's a 1. We'll draw right through it. And again, let's pick up the same reference. Central vanishing point is right here. There I am. I'm going to pick up this back wall. Start it there and open this up. Again, open this up. Then terminate it. Pardon me as I rotate the pad here just a bit. There's my facing wall right there. What I'm doing now is creating the whole envelope of this interior module. So I'm going to start to just break it down accordingly here. And I say, hey, Doug, how are you, Doug? It's good to have you on board, Doug. Thanks so much for joining us here. Cool. How have you been, Doug? Doing well? I'm going through a little interior space studies here. And based on the conversation I had with a group of young people yesterday, just on perspective dynamics and how it all began to work. I don't have all the answers, but one of the things that came out of that whole conversation yesterday was, what do you do with it? How do you start? What do you use with? What elements are you building with? And how do you begin to manage it? What happens if something goes wrong? Well, if it goes wrong, you adjust accordingly. So I thought today to come back into the stream and really focus in on just architectural interior concept sketches, the process. How do you start it? What are the elements you're dealing with? So it's horizon line, central vanishing point. Then we're going to build the box here in terms of putting together the format. So let's kind of open this wall up just a bit. Come right out of the central vanishing point. Let's open that up. Let's open this up. Get it started. Let's break it down. Let's take this through. Let's add an element here. It's kind of fun. Let's put a little bit of circular element right. Let's come back to this. Let's bring that up. I'll talk about that in just a few moments here. Let's open up that circle. How do I get that to work like that? How do I know, for example, that now is on the floor and that's on the ceiling? Well, if I come back and then diagnose that very lightly, it's now the face of a cube. There's my center. Bring it on up. Now here's the face of the cube. I bring those points up, and I'm building this shape. That's what I'm building it off of, the face of a cube. So it's that to that. Now when I find the perspective center, let's see if they line up. Bang, there it is. That's how I know where that whole process is. Hey, Ballistic, good to have you on board, Chief. How's everything? Dr. C is saying hello to you, Ballistic. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining me here. Hope this is not too laborious stuff here. Again, interior space is really the process by which we're looking at here. So now we've added this little element. Now let's come behind this thing And look what we've got here. We've got this. Now let's open this up. Let's got to put a little bit of vaulting in here. Let's open this up just a bit. Let's go back and start this. Let's go to this. Now I'm starting to build the shapes. I'm going to start connecting some of the dots here. There it is, over there. Now we start to vault this guy. Look at what happens here. Look at this. Is cool or what? Now let's break this down. Now let's come around this form here and open it up just a bit more. Take that back to drive line. CVP, CVP, CVP. Let's open this up. Let's drop this back just a touch. And then just break it, put a beam in there. Just a nice little break in the ceiling. Let's kind of get this graphics to kind of right on over to that corner. Then we break it again. Notice, I said earlier in the stream, doing this stuff, it's really amazing to me how much mental gymnastics is going on. I mean, the physical presence of putting together interior space is extremely demanding. There's no question about that. But I always refer to this stuff as visual dynamics and visual gestures, because the gestures change all the time. And it's interesting how the dynamics would change too. It's a gymnastics exercise, forward, backward, north and south, east and west, and the whole picture plane series here. So let's go back into this. Let's work through this. Get a vertical. Let's get a vertical. Break the wall a little bit. Now let's start adding some drama to this thing. Vertical into the corner. Again, let's take this through. Let's drive that back, and then radius it here. Let's break it again and radius it there. Let's put this in place, a little low planter of some sort. And then let's draw through this. That goes back and recedes. That goes back and recedes. Opens that up a bit. Another wall. And then notice, look how much activity there is there in terms of forward, positive, negative, etc. It's just amazing amount of stuff that goes on. So let's kind of put this into practice here. Now around here, and soften it off. Just take a moment, just kind of create some softness in through here, kind of break some of the hard edges and some of the sheerness of this shape itself, or the volume of the actual space that we're dealing with. By the way, too, gang, anybody out there have any questions at all, please feel free to fire away. Be happy to comply here as best I can. Once we get started here, let's take that wall back just a little bit, cheat it. There it is. A little corner post. Let's put a little bit of that in place. Let's put some sort of seating device in here. Pardon me as I turn sideways here just a bit. Put these verticals in place. A little bit of graphics on the vertical there. And let's get some scale in this thing. Some individuals. Let's break this wall up over here. Notice I'm just moving like gangbusters through this thing, hoping that it all works. It's amazing to me how much stuff goes on here. So again, this whole idea of visual gymnastics, that's the whole lesson plan right here today, guys. How it all begins to function. little bit of tone in there, show a little bit of a change of pace in the actual room itself. Let's come back and put a little bit of ceiling here. Let's find the center of this guy here. So that to that. Let's get that visual center of that ceiling cantilever. There it is there. Let's pick a point of reference, call it that, 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 and that. And let's open this up. That, that. Now let's get this ceiling fixtures in place. So it's this box lighting. There's one section, second section. Let's vertically, let's drop it. Let's drop it. Go right back to CVP again. Pardon me for turning it upside down here. Get the actual hard lines in. So there's the actual border itself. The actual border itself. And lo and behold, there's a real loose, quick, and dirty little interior volume study based on what we're looking at here. Again, the whole lesson plan today is using the process to develop the product and really getting into some really interesting things in terms of how to work with these. Again, the systems are so critical. Horizon line, for example, into central vanishing point, and how to build this sketch, how to bring it all out, for example. And notice a little bit more of a twist in this altered 1-2. So let me stop there for a moment. Anybody, any thoughts at all? Any questions or concerns? So far, so good? I hope so. Hey, they're very good. And again, I really appreciate your patience. This is not an easy subject matter to follow here, so thank you. Let's go back and tune in just a bit more here. Let's go back into this, get that vertical, and get this wall to kind of come through here for us. There it is. And again, there it is. That's it, that little break. Let me just get this back in place, and we'll be on to another study here. So, again, the whole idea of getting dynamic with this stuff and making really, excitement in terms of taking a simple one-point perspective and putting a little bit of a twist to it, like a 1-2, and adding some really interesting elements to it to kind of make it all click. So let's go back in and start a little study here. We're ready to go. Go back in through here. Let's get that horizon line down. Draw it right through it, so I know where I am with my reference point. That's my horizon line. That's where I'm going to be standing, my central vanishing point. I'm going to work with that. I'm just working with 1 point here today. I think 1 point's the most difficult, mysterious one to deal with because it's such an animal in terms of, again, it can be dangerous from the point of view of being so static that it's all parallel, both parallel horizontally and parallel vertically. But the idea is to break that paradigm and put more excitement into it as we go. So let's go back in there and pick up. I'm just going to start with a back wall here. Let's do this. Vault to ceiling. Now, for my central vanishing point, I'm going to start that line right there. And bring the vault forward. Now down to floor level. Now let's build the shape. Let's build the shape. Draw right through it. Now I'm starting to just pick up some of the theme here in terms of what this vaulted ceiling is going to do for us here. So here we are. There it is. Out of this corner. Over. And again, out of this corner. And over. So we've got a flat spot here, a flat there, into the vault. And that goes right on through. Again, right on through. Right on through. Now let's take this downhill. Let's get this guy here. Let's kind of set up something on the floor system here. Let me get this corner finished. There it is. And again, over here. Take that back, run it through, move an offset. Now let's get this set up. Then 2, 1 and 2, there and there. Now, perspective center. Get that to work for me. There it is. Let's put that guy right down the middle and put 1, 2, 3 bits of lighting right in there. Let's get that last spike in place here. A bit of glass surface back there. Notice how that whole form is starting to come together now. Hopefully it's all beginning to read here. And now let's kind of change the pace here. Let's take this back out the other way. Going down the hallway, for example. Let's run it off of here. Let's kind of break this shape up just a bit. Now let's go this way, and just one more passing through here. There it is, there it is. Now let's kind of get this set up here. Little table area, perception zone. A little bit of softness in the form to kind of take it away from being so critical and so hard-edged. A bit of soft section in the corner there. Interesting things here to work with, guys. I mean, notice again how, as we go through this whole process, and each sketch has its own unique flavor in terms of putting together. Boy, you know, there's a lot of ins and outs, a lot of positive, negatives, a lot of change of pace and materials and the like. It's just a real, very delicate set of circumstances to deal with here. So let's kind of finish off the floor surface here into the entryway. Let's take it back to VP. Open that up. Now let's go back in and get a little more organic with this guy. Let's put some shape into this thing. What's this? Into that. Put the human scale back in there. Pardon me, I just turn it sideways a bit. graphics. Well, it's quiet out there. Making sense here, gang? How we doing? So far, so good. There's another little thumbnail sketch in terms of putting together a space and just looking at the possibility of working with what I refer to in this case, in all these sketches we did, these little thumbnails, these process sketches, are two very important variables, horizon line and central vanishing point. And the third one that's probably critical but not as important as the first two is this idea of altering the perspective of 1, 2 and just kind of twisting it just a little bit to make it more intriguing. So let me stop here for a moment and just take an inventory. What do you think, guys? Does this make sense? Coming along okay? Anybody, any response or questions or concerns? Doug, Stuart, Pixel, Ballistic, please feel free. Fire away, gang. Interesting, interesting, interesting. So there we are. And that thing again, all good. Hey, thanks, Pixel. Good deal. So making sense. That's excellent. It's good to know. So I think it's really, again, the purpose of today's whole stream was to get back into fundamental thinking in terms of how to put together a certain system of perspective and rationale. It is so, especially this subject matter, it's so difficult in terms of all the elements that are involved in it. Again, I don't want to go back and repeat and be redundant about what those elements are again, but it changes, the whole scope changes because the depth phenomenon is important. And I've also believed it too, is always, it comes down to, in both these sketches here that we started with, notice the process. The idea is to leave things open and not confine it into a box. And the reason that's done is to kind of open up the envelope of understanding and allow the viewer to come into the space. That's, to me, the critical part. Get the viewer inside that space, then bring them back out again. So I refer to it as invitational graphics. So you invite the person in, and then you begin to move around it in that space and begin to develop as you go through the system with regard to what's in it, what are the textures, what are the details. What's glass, what's hard surface, what's softscape, and everything else. It's just really interesting how it all begins to build together once the fundamentals are put in place. And again, those fundamentals, you cannot bypass them. If you try to cheat perspective, believe me, it'll cheat on you every single time. Oh, question here from Pixel. Just amazing to see how. Hey, David, hey, how you doing? How you doing, David? Good to see you, Chief. Let's see, Pixel had a question here. Just amazing to see how all the concepts build on each other. Great. Yeah, it does. It all builds. That's a great reference term too, Pixel. It is a building process, no doubt about it. Invitational graphics is exactly what I referred to it over the years, Pixel. So thank you. You bring people in, you draw them into the space, and you come back out of it again with a whole bunch of different elements that you're dealing with, whether it's color, texture, scale, and so on. All these things are so paramount. They're fundamentally truthful. And David, hey, thanks very much for joining us, David. Good thing you jumped on. Looking so far so good. You having a good day? And again, can't thank you enough for taking the time to tune in, David. So cool. Now that I've gone through these two, let's go back. There's the first series of passes. Again, just getting some very, very fundamental theme sketches down first. How to break the space up, how to work with it. And then the second one is just interesting how we pulled together a little bit more complicated process, two different variations, one very, very vaulted or a dome ceiling or radius ceiling, and another very sheer, but cylinders or forms inside that. So what I thought we'd do is take a look at some of the things I've done in the past here. I just pulled out some reference pieces here. These are some client pieces done. Let me get these out of the way so it doesn't confuse the issue. There you are. these are some things we've done for clients in the past. I was really honored to be a part of the process several years ago to be involved in Procter & Gamble's Manhattan World Headquarters for Gillette. So these are some very quick little pencil sketches that I did together for the interior space for that Gillette show house in Manhattan. And interesting story behind this whole process was that when they brought me on board, there was no time, for example, to come back in and discuss it's going to be this. They gave me the ground rules, and I just started flying on it and sent the sketches down like this in this format, and got approval on them, sight unseen. And I had less than 3 days to finish the job. It was just a real adventure. Believe me, it was an adventure. So I sent the sketches down. They came back and said, just go. So we did those. I did a total of 3 studies, of which this is one of a sales reference area. And I have color sketches of these too, so maybe later on in the future stream I'll show you what the color vignettes look like, renderings. So there was a first sketch at it right there. There's one, and then this was done as you enter the space itself into the showroom. This was a little thumbnail study done for that process as well. So adventure is a kind of way, yeah, you got it. It's a nice way of saying it, I think. I don't want to use a word I really want to use, Pixel, but yeah, it's an adventure. Nothing like swallowing hard and getting it done, but it worked well. And again, this is another little detail like abolished at the second story, open area, all glass. This is all part of the retail space for this new Gillette headquarters in Manhattan. So those are, again, really, let me go back just for a moment. I always like to utilize these sketches. Let me just kind of put these out side by side. I utilize this type of sketch format almost every single time when I start a project, to work back and forth with individuals to get a real good feel for, is this the right scale? Is this what we're after? And the material's all there. Is it highlighted enough? Are we putting enough energy into the system and make a real statement with it? So I will start everything out with real thumbnail sketches, whether it's this format or like we've done over here, for example, in this pass. There's always a whole series of sketches done like this prior to the actual final coming together. I don't think I've ever gotten to the place where I've done a project where all of a sudden you just, other than this one, was a pretty tight schedule. But most of the time, there's enough time spent to go right back and time left to go in and detail certain things. So those are the first two we're done for this whole process at the Procter & Gamble in Manhattan headquarters area. This is an interesting one. This is for an office complex over in the Dayton area for RG Properties. A very, very elaborate lobby. This is a little pencil sketch based on some interior design studies here. That was done very quickly to get, the carpeting, the floor textures, some of the glass in the waiting rooms, and some of the ceiling graphics. So that's another approach, just doing a nice little line drawing and then putting a little bit of color into it prior to going to a full presentation rendering. Here's another one here, for example, going in. This is done for the YMCA. This is done, I think, in Baltimore, Maryland. Interesting little thing about they want a new lobby area. This goes into full color. And again, behind the scenes here, again, there's a lot of pencil sketches and a lot of interesting things going on behind the scenes to get the approval on this. So this is the main exterior. Then the entryway, kind of a very long, elaborate desk type system or check-in and the like. So that was one. Another little detail of an office space in the area itself where you can actually work with it. Just a little library area or conference area in the same process for the actual program, YMCA. So there's a second one. Then the third one was here, for example, again, another view of that table area, or another concept, for example, of the entryway check-in area at the YMCA. So those would take a little bit further. Again, notice how the space opens up, and again, following the same principles with horizon line, and getting the variables in, open up the space, and put a little bit more of an altered 1-2 in place to really get the character down. So those are some little studies here. And last but not least, I'll show you some additional studies here. These are only by 17 size. This is a black and white line study for a country club in Arizona that I was commissioned to do. This is the formal dining room. They wanted a black and white drawing, very elaborate, and a lot of conversation going back and forth about materials, textures, tables, chairs, doorways, and you name it. It was a very elaborate set of circumstances. This was the indoor primary meeting place or dining room area, and they had an outdoor patio system where they had the same set of setup where it was all the golf course in the background, and things, for example, a fireplace, and then all fenced off. And again, this is an outdoor dining patio. for that same golf club process. So that was, again, they wanted black and white only for just publication processing, and I think we did do some color studies, but it was not as elaborate as this stuff. It's really high intensity black and white line drawing. Again, notice the whole problem and inclusion of good design thinking in terms of horizon line, perspective, and scale, and getting all the textures down there where they're asking for. It was a very good series of interchange back and forth. So hey, thanks very much, Pixel. Very easy. Drawing all those chairs in perspective, yeah, it was torture for me too, Pixel, believe me. But we got the job done, and they liked it, and they approved it. It was built. There's some other little studies here for, this is done for a local American Cancer Society here in Columbus. A new office entry area and some office space for the new individuals. Again, simple little color study based on, again, prior to seeing things like this, our finished colored sketches were little thumbnail sketches like we showed you at the very beginning of the stream to get the process working. So that was again for the American Cancer Society. And again, here's another one. This is the main entry area. Coming into that area, you come in and check in, and then into the office space itself. This is the main foyer area on that same American Cancer Society. So basically, gang, that's where we are. I mean, I just want to take a moment here to kind of sum things up and take just a quick second to thank you very much for tuning in here. Let me get these organized. There we are. Get these things organized, and again, just in a quick review, I'll show you how really essential it is to come right back to basic square one. This is where we are. This is where we started. And I think I want to come back and just sum up by stating that, again, it all begins with a good, simple thumbnail sketch in terms of what that space is going to look like. And you're following the whole principles of what we talked about earlier. Horizon line, central vanishing point. And again, the real purpose of today's message was to get the process down. How to architectural interior space process. How do you begin? What do you utilize? How do you put it all together? What's important? What's not important? How to open things up? How to close things down? This is all part of the whole journey. And I think, again, this was the first thing we did, just to kind of get the setup down. And choosing where we wanted to just show you just different variations on theme and how to develop certain forms. Then the last page we did was something like this, where we actually got a little bit more elaborate and went a little further with some of the principles we were referring to throughout the course of the afternoon and the stream. So I hope this is of some enjoyment to you, and I hope you've learned some things as much as I have. I mean, every time I go through this, I'm amazed at how ignorant I am. I'm still learning about what to do with it, how to build it, and how to begin adjustments and changes. So it's been very helpful for me to go through some of this stuff, to go back and refresh it. And I'm active with it all the time, but still never assume, because it makes you know what out of you and me. And just don't want to do that. It's an extremely, extremely delicate process to work with. And I'll close with this comment, and I think it's so true. I think it's, and I think it was echoed by Sid Mead years ago when I was going to school with him. He made a comment about interior space design as being the most complicated series of things he's ever had to deal with from a learning point of view. And I could not concur more. It's very delicate. It's extremely explosive. If one mistake is made, the whole perspective's gone. It's very delicate. It's all the more reason to put all your confidence in getting the fundamentals of truth down. These are truthful things. You can't deny the fact that once you have that fundamental down and the truth begins to speak, everything else falls into place smoothly. So again, that to me would be a good way to close with this. That is an extremely explosive discipline, and from my perspective, the most difficult one to deal with. There's always a lot more time and planning putting things together with this discipline, much as there is with landscape design as well, architectural exterior landscape work. Yeah, that's difficult, but not nearly as demanding as interior space. So we'll pick this subject up maybe a little bit later on and do some final formal. I've got some things coming in that might be involved in some interior space work for some office people here in town. I'll be glad to bring that up. Maybe utilize my stream time to put those renders together for you. So to all of you tuning in today, thank you so much, David, Pixel, Ballistic, Stuart, everybody else, Doug. Thank you so much for joining forces today. It's always a joy to have you guys on board. I cannot thank you enough for the time involved. And if you have any questions about or things you want to have me cover or detail on or discuss, be happy to really take the time. Please drop me a note at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. And if you're interested in drawing lessons at all, and in fact, if you even know somebody who wants to pick up some drawing lessons, I have a very good, thorough drawing program series in my website called Dr. Contrast in the Dream Labs, and you can reach that at drcontrast.com. So if you have any drawing information and you know of individuals who want to learn how to pick up some basic principles in drawing, please pass the word along to them. That's available there. And then almost really interesting too, guys. Last but not least, I'm really interested in building my stream audience here, so to get the numbers up. So if you know of anybody who's interested in joining forces with me on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'll be live tomorrow again at 2 o'clock on that subject matter. But my typical change now has been Tuesdays and Thursdays for future reference from 2 o'clock on. So much appreciated. Pass the word that I'm available here on Twitch, and I really look forward to working with you. So once again, thank you one and all. Hope you had a great day. This was fun and interesting, intriguing stuff to work with. So again, wish you all the very best, and I will end the stream with this because it's the most important part of the day. Never forget to remember, dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. Take care. See you tomorrow at 2.